Hello, 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 and welcome to the Cheap Seats, which is your weekly football show focusing on English football, the English Premier League. We will talk about some Champions League here and there if it matters, but seemingly after Liverpool winning last night or 2 nights ago, just everyone doesn't seem to care anymore because now Liverpool's back in it. We're going to talk about Klopp being tired, but now we're like, okay, he's won a game. But anyway, it's myself, Cyrus, Dean, and AB here to talk about all the things that we have picked up this week. But before we go ahead, let's just do some admin. And please do interact with us on these platforms. Please do like and subscribe on YouTube. It helps us with all the algorithms and helps us get as far and wide across the YouTube landscape or that digital landscape that we have. This week, we're going to chat a little bit Chelsea, but most importantly, the topic of this week is it time for Mourinho to go? So if you stick around, Dean's going to say a lot, and I've got a Manchester United supporter in AB and a Chelsea supporter in Cyrus, who will provide some anecdotes from their times with Cyrus, with not Cyrus but Mourinho. Cyrus has had it twice.
The same guy.
Same thing.
The same guy. I'm the special one. I'm not one from the bottle.
Cyrus, you haven't been with us for a long time. I wanted to get a sense, and that's where we're going to go into the Chelsea talk, about Thomas Tuchel, how you feel about Thomas Tuchel as a Chelsea supporter. Are there any patterns that you're seeing? I nearly had a heart attack when I saw the lineup and I saw Kepa playing. I was sitting there going, okay, what's going on? We're going back. But he kept the clean sheet. So seemingly he's not lost the game since he started. That's a good thing.
It is a good thing. Thomas Tuchel, so let's go a little further back. I think there's to speak for the fan base, as we all do, the thing about the Frank Lampard sacking was, it's hard to see a legend let go by the club. And yes, the performances weren't at the level that we'd expected them to be, but I also feel Lampard was really unlucky as a manager. He came very close to doing some pretty spectacular things, losing to Liverpool in the Club World Cup final. And Chelsea actually played quite well in that game, and then it was fairly close, losing the FA Cup final. Yes, it was obviously not the Club World Cup final, but you know what I'm talking about, the Super Cup. Super Cup. So, it was the Super Cup, Liverpool-Chelsea, I think it was 2019.
As prestigious as the Carabao Cup.
Yeah, look, I misspoke, blame Trump. But the thing was that, when you look at those, like making it to the FA Cup final, if Chelsea win that, chances are Frank Lampard's still in the job. And so it's those kinds of things that have basically led to his sacking. Now, Thomas Tuchel replacing him is actually not necessarily a masterstroke, but what the club have done is that they've shored up what was potentially the biggest problem at Chelsea, which was the defense, with somebody who actually knows how to manage the players that are at his disposal. So in essence, Tuchel, because of the jobs he's had, has had to work on some of the most important facets of big teams, which is making sure that you're solid at the back and then attacking from there. Frank was pretty much all about making sure you've got the defensive guys doing their job without actually putting the structures in place, and then having the attacking guys go about and doing their business. Tuchel's teams haven't been free-flowing. They haven't been high-scoring. Frank's teams were. However, Frank's teams conceded goals more than Kevin Keegan's, and that's why he's no longer the boss. So, and I remember saying this to a few people when they were saying, oh, Frank should be sacked, and there's primarily people who didn't support Chelsea. And I said, be careful what you wish for, because the very same players who you said have not necessarily been great at Chelsea might just need a change of manager. And we're seeing that the structures change things. We're seeing that Chelsea's looking far more solid. I mean, now you're looking at Jorginho and you're like, oh, this guy can actually play again. Alonso, where was he? Look at him scoring goals and doing all sorts of stuff. Kepa is now being brought back into the fold after having been tossed in the scrap heap. I tend to think that Tuchel's doing a lot of the right things at the right time. I do think Mendy should be number one because of his aerial ability. Kepa at corners is, I mean, you might as well leave a donut in a dog shop because, you just don't know what's going to happen.
So there's a goalkeeper right now in South Africa's biggest club who calls himself Mzansi's number one, and he, look across the ball into the box, you're going to see flames.
but that's exactly how it goes, in the sense that some people are just really bad at certain things. People forget how David De Gea had been derided for the first 2-3 seasons of his time at United, and everybody talked about, oh, he can't communicate with the defense, they don't trust him, all of the very same things that happened to Kepa. And the thing was that they gave De Gea time, and before you knew it, he was the best goalkeeper in the Premier League. Now, at Chelsea, I don't see that happening with Kepa because his confidence had been so eroded that now you've got two relatively good goalkeepers. I still think Kepa's not so bad as a shot stopper, and he showed that in the last game. But Mendy is a lot more commanding and a lot more calm. When he's on the pitch, nobody's thinking, oh my word, calamities are happening. So Tuchel's done what he's needed to do, and I'm happy that that's happening.
Have you seen a structure to Tuchel's play? I know that Mason Mount somehow is still everyone's love child.
No one knows how.
Interestingly, it's actually quite intriguing that, because when you look at and this is the thing about Mount, right? Everybody who sort of looks from the outside in goes, but what is he doing? And the reality is he's doing a heck of a lot of the grunt work. He does link between the midfield and the attack, and in some cases the defense and the attack. He's the first person in any pressing situation. And as Tuchel's system starts to come forward, you're seeing that the two sitting behind a roving Mount allow him to then express himself a lot more. And you're going to see a lot more of Mason Mount through balls that are being finished off by players like Timo Werner, who's now finally scored a goal.
It's just one goal, though.
Look, if you remember, the same thing happened with Aubameyang, where he wasn't scoring. So the one can lead to two and can lead to three. So we'll see.
It can lead to a hat-trick.
Exactly.
Against Leeds, the worst defense in the league. So calm down as well.
Does it matter who it's against if you're still scoring? That's the thing. At the end of the season, they don't say, oh, Van Nistelrooy scored 30 goals, but 7 of them were against Southampton. You still got to put them in the back of the net. So I think that the structure that Tuchel's put in place is to really have a very solid back five with your sort of more mobile sort of centre-back trio and the wing-backs from there. The thing that's been intriguing is to see Callum Hudson-Odoi being used as a right wing-back, much like how Victor Moses was under Antonio Conte, because not only is he tracking back, he doesn't necessarily have to be the greatest defender, but when he's going forward, he's causing so much havoc that it causes real problems for the defensive team. And then Alonso, and this is the one aspect that people haven't been speaking about with him, his delivery is pretty good, but he's also one of the tallest players on the pitch. So when it comes to corners and defending and attacking, he's one of the first people in the box that you're actually aiming for. So I think that's why he's using him a lot more, because Chilwell is a great player and it does exactly what you'd want. But Alonso, I think the height is really what's given him the advantage.
So Tuchel arrived at Chelsea and looked at the 70 million signing and said, I need him to be taller. He's too short.
Well, let's also look at it in terms of the structure. I think that Chilwell will be played, but I do think that if anything, this helps a lot of the players who have been put on the sidelines put back into the shop window. So it's twofold. If Alonso is playing and he starts to look good, more clubs want him, we get a better price for him. The same with Rudiger, and so I think there's a sort of two.
No one's paying 70 million for Ben Chilwell.
No.
Again, or even who else is not playing? Bernard Mendy. We're not paying a lot for Mendy because we can see that he's going to go Kepa. But let's go to Dean and AB. No, I saw that and I was like, you know what, it's fine. You brought a guy, as long as he got paid. We know Mendy's story. It's heartbreaking. As long as the guy got paid, now he can go elsewhere in Europe and be a number one keeper because, quite frankly, he's not appreciated at home. Dean, what do you make of this of Chelsea's run? Yes, I want to contrast it with yours because we spoke about
in that run, there was a certain game between Spurs and Chelsea. So it is definitely worth speaking about that.
We can talk about that.
No, but what I want to talk about is we spoke about the mid-season manager sacking jump that Chelsea's on. How do you feel? Because we're going to talk about your manager getting fired, but how do you feel about Chelsea looking good? It feels as though we took out Chelsea's everyone else's secret weapon was that Lampard was the one who was holding Chelsea back. Now it looks like we're back to square one.
Yeah, well, I mean, I mentioned it in another show that if there was ever a time to fire your coach, Chelsea did it at the perfect time because of the fixtures that they had post his departure. I mean, I think the real test is going to come now with the Champions League, Man United. Okay, well, yeah, they got it. Let's go Madrid. They got Man United and then Everton, which are all teams in the top half, although Everton without Dominic Calvert-Lewin are as useful as a condom with a hole in it. So there's not,
if you're using it for water balloons,
we'll see what happens there. But I think this is really where the test is going to come. Looking back at that Spurs game, I don't think Chelsea won it as much as Spurs lost it. That's obviously a Spurs bias look at it. But
I was going to say, I don't know if it looked that way from our end of the pitch.
Exactly. But, in terms of, I think Chelsea are really coming to the forefront now in terms of their attacking. I think Tuchel in the beginning games looked to sort out that offense, and he sorted them out within 2 or 3 games, and that was done. We looked at the consistency was there from game one, and he's used the defenders' consistency. The front guys is where we really saw him kind of tweaking, and I think he's sort of feeling it now. The game against Newcastle, I mean, getting a guy like Werner to score, he's low on confidence, and then letting him score, giving him the opportunity to be in the game and to score, then only do well for you going forward. So I think Chelsea are in a good place. I mean, they were literally sitting down in 9th not so long ago, and now they're back up to 4th, which again says a lot about what Chelsea's done, but also about what the other guys have done. So you can't fault Chelsea for, since he's come about, they haven't lost a game. So it is not great for the other teams around, but I think the true test is we're gonna see the true test of Tuchel at Chelsea over the next 2 or 3 games that they have coming up. But yeah, hopefully they crash and burn. Pretty much.
Maybe Manchester United's playing Chelsea in 10 days' time, I think, yes, because it's a Sunday game. Are you worried about them? They're 4 points away from you. There was a point where when you guys were flying high at the top, chilling there, doing the great things, they were at the lowest of the lows, but all of a sudden they've gotten, I think, 4 wins out of 5. They're staring you down the barrel, 4 points behind. Do you think Chelsea, A, are a better side right now under Tuchel, and B, do you think they can catch you?
So, interesting question. Are they a better side? I think the side has stayed the same. Tuchel didn't inherit a team of losers. He inherited a team that didn't know how to defend, a team that structurally were very naive. He inherited a team from a man who coached a club that Wayne Rooney is currently coaching, and that's the only experience he's had in coaching. So it's Tuchel is doing the right. I know. I mean, that's where it is, man.
It's true.
That's where it is.
If only Wayne Rooney could get a similar Frank Lampard package at United.
Yeah,
we'd love for that to happen.
No.
I would pay his release clause to go to United right now.
No, please, Lord, no. So I mean, I think Tuchel's done the smart moves, and he's really sorted out that defense, which is very worrying because when you play against United with that, and if you have that 3 in at the back, you just need to make sure United don't counter and they won't score. And going into any game with that sort of solid defense against United is very, very difficult for United. So would I be worried? Yes, to an extent. But also, are we playing Chelsea at the Bridge, or are we playing at Old Trafford? Because we're playing at Old Trafford. We're going to. Okay, cool. So cool. So we've got a chance. Because United don't like.
You who said you would beat Arsenal away from home, and all of a sudden it ended up in a limp draw, and Rashford missing open goals.
United's record at Stamford Bridge is not bad. It's not bad at all.
It's not bad. But yeah, I think the biggest test for Tuchel's men would be not currently now, but what happens when that first loss happens. You've got 2 Atletico matches. How do you react from there? And I think he'll have a job to do if Atletico beats him, because, I mean, they're probably the most likely team to beat Tuchel's team. I wouldn't say United are, but it's Atletico, and Luis Suarez is doing amazing things there. And so is, what's his name? the manager, Diego
Oh,
something.
Simeone.
There we go. Yeah, I mean,
we just need Suarez to take a bite out of one of those Chelsea defenders. That's all we need, and then we're good.
Yeah, so
it might just happen. We're tasty.
Yeah.
It's about how Tuchel helps his team regain that confidence. Wow. So it's very interesting, and credit to Tuchel. He's revitalized guys like Jorginho and Alonso, guys who are quality players. Kovacic as well. I mean, they're no mugs. They're no Scott McTominays. Even though we all love a little bit of a Mac sauce on our hot dog.
Wow.
These are proper European
this is the first
class
time someone's been compared to Mac sauce.
Well, and
you heard it here first on
know.
the cheap seat. McTominay is being used as a benchmark. Wow, that's amazing. That is just
the base level.
Mac sauce is love Mac sauce.
So at least everyone knows what ground floor is, what the base
Exactly.
level is.
We are trying to grow our viewership, and there's
Zidane
out Mac sauce.
Lingard, Mac sauce. That's where it is.
But
Hey, Jay
I
Lynch.
agree with him. I agree with AB here. And I think the thing about that, though, is if there's one thing that Lampard didn't have was experience with coaching big name players and guys who've got egos. If anything, he used the weight of his own personality to potentially try and stamp his authority on the team. Whereas Tuchel doesn't have that. He can't say he went to a Champions League final twice or won one or anything like that. But what he does have is the ability to say that he's gotten teams to win. Yes, PSG is basically a cheat code in the French league, but
he took them to
his
Champions League final.
Dortmund side, exactly,
Yeah.
So his Dortmund side is one of those that did fairly well, and he also understands how to deal with big personalities. Neymar is probably the biggest of the lot. Now, did the way Tuchel's reign at PSG, the way it ended wasn't great, but it also wasn't in acrimony. It wasn't like PSG was sitting in 7th place. It was just like, no, we're going in a different direction. And so I think that he'll be able to bring some of the best out of these guys. And, the only thing for me is that United game will be the most telling, especially when it comes to not just the race for the top 4, because I'm going to say something really controversial about that. It really sets up the rest of the season for everybody, because if the results go the way that a lot of people are expecting them to this weekend, right? Like United should win their game. Let's say Chelsea win theirs. Right now, there's still a gap of 4 points. There's a possibility that Liverpool miss out on the Champions League football this season if their league form doesn't pick up. And I think they are possibly the most likely to miss out. That's the controversial side of things. So this game against United really has a lot of implications for what happens with Liverpool, because if United carry on, that means that the battle is between Chelsea and Liverpool for that 4th place, as well as Leicester and potentially West Ham. If Chelsea beat United, that means everybody is in that battle. United, Chelsea, West Ham, Leicester. It's insane back there.
Can you add us in there? We're 8 points behind.
No, I'm not adding Arsenal in there. Because I think Arsenal this weekend are going to find that, Mikel Arteta is a flat track bully. And particularly Aubameyang.
Guys, we're playing City. Everybody lost to City. I'm not complaining.
We didn't lose to City. Don't come here. United didn't lose to City.
Yeah, you didn't.
How did that
Maybe
end
not
up
in
10
your
points
head to
behind
head.
them now?
But exactly.
We lost to Sheffield, but not City.
Yeah. And Spurs. How we're leaving Spurs out of that equation, I don't know. But
I'll leave Spurs out of that equation. Don't you worry.
Okay, guys. Let's move on to Dean. Dean, you gave us a one-liner that said, "Is it time for Mourinho to go?"
And
take us through the emotions, because we've had Mourinho in Mourinho, who was just beautiful, telling Dele Alli that he's the greatest player on earth, giving Ndombele props, and then all of a sudden we've got into this Mourinho who's now fighting Serge Aurier. I don't know what he did to Serge Aurier for him to walk out of the stadium, which is a little bit worrying because we're in a COVID world. But it's because normally Mourinho gets to this point after he's won something.
Exactly.
He arrives in Spurs and he's already there, but there's no trophy.
man fast-tracked his personality, and it's not okay. But I think, look, there's no doubt that Spurs enjoyed the best start to a Premier League season that we've had in an extremely long time. I mean, you just go back. We spoke about Spurs all the time. Are they going to win? Is this the year? And everyone was positive about it, you know. Everyone, all the Spurs supporters were, you know, here we go. It's the time. Finally got a manager that can win. Backed us in the transfer window. Let's go. And after that North London derby where we beat you guys 2-0, after that, it's like we forgot. We completely forgot how to play football. And you look at some of those earlier games, beating Southampton 5-2, beating United 6-1. I don't know how we used to score so many goals. I honestly can't remember how we used to do that, because you look at us now, we just simply can't score a goal. And that's as worrying a fact as there is, because the whole reason, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to know, Jose's teams are solid at the back. They hit you on the counter, and that's how they go ahead and they win the games. Everyone knows that in world football. It's all good. Thanks, okay? Trying to do that at Spurs at the moment, we have a defense that can't defend and an attack that so rarely counter-attacks that you can't actually call it, you can't actually say it's a Jose system, because it's just not even working the way, even in his dreams, it wouldn't even have worked, because the players just aren't there. Yeah. And so here's the thing, right? And this is the sort of negativity that's been building up over the last month or two around the Spurs guys, is Jose came in and we were like, okay, cool. He has to win something. He's always won something. You know, this is what we've always needed. We just need a trophy. Okay. No one bothered to think at what cost. Okay. And this is where I'm at now. Is it worth winning, or possibly winning, the Carabao Cup and wanting to rip my eyes out every single time Spurs are on the TV, because I can't stand to watch the bloody football we're playing? That 45 minutes against Chelsea was the worst 45 minutes of my life. Easily. By far. Because
I don't think we all
first half, because you know, is it like leading to the final whistle, or when you were getting pummeled in the first half?
All of it. Every single part of minutes. All of that. I just hated everything about it. And I think this is the point that everyone is sort of feeling right now, is we let go of Poch, who is one of the best young managers in world football at the moment. And very much, he had one slip. Obviously, we lost to Bayern 7-2. But the kind of football we were playing, even if we lost, we still tried. And at least that gives the supporters something to be like, okay, look, we got absolutely manhandled, but we didn't play terrible football that we hated. And I think that's the point that we're at now. We're playing terrible football, and we're not even getting results, and we keep losing. And it's getting to the point where you're saying, I don't know if it's so much the fact that Jose needs to go as much as the fact that people are now saying we should have kept Poch, because it's not. If Levy or if Daniel Levy went and backed Poch in the transfer window the way that he backed Mourinho in this last transfer window, which, ask any Spurs fan, and you can even ask you guys, it's probably the best window that Spurs have ever had. You know, bringing in back Bale, Reguilon, Doherty, Højbjerg, the resurgence of Ndombele. Okay, that's a Jose thing. And that's the other side. There are positives to talk about. But it was a great window. And that's something Poch never got. Under Poch, we brought in Ndombele, but Poch was always crying out for something more. And there was always players on his wish list which never came. And Levy gave it to Mourinho. So you're kind of going, if Levy backed Poch in a window the way he backed Mourinho, would we not be in a much better position, not just for this season, but seasons going forward, because he's a coach for the future? And now you're sitting in a position where you let one of the best young coaches go.
I know.
Here's my point. Here's my point. Around Spurs, every single Spurs fan is saying it's not worth it right now. The chance of maybe winning a trophy this season, it's not worth running the club into the ground. And that's where I'm feeling at the moment. And one of the funniest tweets I've ever seen in my whole life is that our only hope is that Poch impresses at PSG so much that one of the Qatar families buy Spurs and then liquidate us, because that's what we deserve. So that is the only bit of like hope that we have. But I'll leave it to the guys.
So you don't want American owners. Why do you want Qatar families? But anyway, We're not talking about American owners who won the Super Bowl and don't invest in a club in Manchester. Cyrus, Dean's talking about bringing an ex back. You brought him back twice. Oh, well, yeah. Well, once.
Yeah.
You managed to
I brought him back once, but he was there twice, yeah.
He was there twice. You know the style of football Mourinho's going to play when you're going to start off with, right?
Yeah.
How did you console yourself in these moments when the ship was sinking and you kind of knew it was sinking, and Mourinho, because there's a point where Mourinho teams all of a sudden the attack doesn't hold, can't do more than it's required because teams are now closing out the outlet passes like Spurs have been, like teams have been doing against Spurs for the past couple of months, and not being able to let the game go. How did you handle this period that Dean is describing?
So I'd like to address everything Dean spoke about and then your question as well. But let's start with you see, Chelsea obviously is a completely different environment. Just remember, when Mourinho came the first time, it was exactly the same situation. We had a beloved Poch-style manager in Claudio Ranieri. Everybody loved him. Ranieri, he splashed the cash, which is something Poch didn't get. But he brought in the likes of Crespo. I mean, that was just the beginning of the fantasy football at Chelsea, and it was marvelous. What Mourinho did, though, was he said, okay, I see what you did, Claudio, but there's a few things you got wrong. The first being, make sure you're difficult to break down at the back. And that was exactly what he managed to do there. When you look at the subsequent issues around the club, often that had to do with Mourinho having to try and be bigger than the club to a point where nobody questioned him. And then the ego became so bloated that it then caused ructions, and then the results started dropping, and then he was gone. Now, he's had two successful stints at Chelsea, not just came there and was like, okay, things are fine. He won stuff. And the whole thing about the beautiful football argument, and this is something that I've found really interesting because I've been there through the waves. I understand that football fans want to be entertained, but trust me, Dean, when you pick up that trophy, all of this nonsense about at what expense, it goes out the window because you now have.
If it's the Premier League, if it's the Premier League trophy.
The very first, what was the trophy you've won the most recent? What was your most recent
trophy? Pre-season.
Right?
Audi Cup 2018.
But my point is, it has to be a stepping stone. And so, yes, it is the Carabao Cup now, but what he's trying to get the guys to understand is winning is a culture. You shouldn't just do it once like Arsenal, and then you don't have to do it ever again, right?
We did it 3 times, and then we didn't do it ever again.
Yeah, look, we get you. I'm just obviously, making a really pointed and in some ways ridiculous dig. But and this is why I'm making the case for Mourinho, because I've been going through some of the results, and it's interesting. So Spurs have lost 7 times this season, right? Those losses, the first game of the season was a loss to Everton. You don't lose again till your 13th game of the season, which was against Liverpool. And frankly, most people have been losing to Liverpool. The loss after that was against Leicester. Now that you should be winning that game. However, Leicester are also a kind of team that can beat you. The next loss after that is against Liverpool again. So those games you could almost expect, okay, fine, you're going to lose. You then lose to Brighton. That's an aberration that should never be happening. Losing to Chelsea, we call it 3-point lane for a reason. And then the most recent loss to Manchester City. So
we changed that stadium name, actually, Cyrus, because of that. So
I know. And now you might even get a sponsor for us. Maybe it should be 3, our title sponsors.
There you go.
But the thing about it is the losses were also against teams. So of the losses that you've had this season, you'd expect 2 losses to Liverpool is not the worst thing ever. A loss to Man City, you can also stomach that. It's the losses to Everton, Leicester, and specifically Brighton that will be the main causes of concern. Now, let's look then at the squad. And this is where I think it's really important to also look at the Pochettino versus Mourinho thing. Pochettino was Spurs' wife when they were in high school sweethearts, and then they ended up going to Hollywood. And when they got to Hollywood, Daniel Levy was like, hang on, there are Hollywood starlets here. Thanks, honey. It's been real. I know you wanted a mink coat. I couldn't afford it then. I can now, and I'm moving on. And that's exactly what you're seeing. You will never back the person who got you to where you were. You back the person who you want to be. And that's exactly what happened with Spurs. Now, Mourinho is there getting players, though technically the biggest issue they've had is that defense is horrible. Toby's still there, but you haven't got another partner for him. Davinson Sanchez is not that guy. Matt Doherty is not that guy.
Eric Dyer is definitely not that guy either.
What about Joe Roden?
He's too young. Joe Roden's good, but he's young.
Roden, he's not there. So when Mourinho went to Chelsea, who was the first player he signed? Ricardo Carvalho. In the very first season that he went there, a classy centre-back who then formed an incredible partnership with John Terry. Who is the leader of your back four right now? Because Hugo Lloris, to be totally honest, has not been at the top of his powers for a long time. So you need to have a centre-back who's commanding. For me, if I were Mourinho, I'd go shopping at Southampton again and get, is it Vestergaard? Who's the massive guy?
Yes, Yannick Vestergaard.
Bring him in and slot him next to any other young guy to do the running around. That will shore up all of the problems of Spurs, because Southampton did exactly that with Virgil van Dijk. Virgil was never, and I still am not really sure if he's the best centre-back in the world, but he is so big that he manages to win all the aerial duels and has a very good big presence around him. Spurs need to do something like that, and that will sort out all your problems. Then you can start letting the guys play, because he can't trust Dele Alli, because Dele is not going to run back. So he's like, if you're not going to track back, then you're useless in my system.
But you see, Spurs they were in the market for a centre-back before. Well, everyone was so amazed that, oh wow, Bale, Reguilon, we're bringing all these guys. But Mourinho was in the market. We were in for Diaz before we went to City. City just offered more money. We were after Skriniar from Inter. We were there. He just didn't want to come. So we were in the market, which I think looking back now, you kind of go, flip, I would rather take a centre-back, a proper centre-back signing right now over
Gareth
John
Bale.
Hart or Gareth Bale, whoever. It doesn't matter, because that's what we needed.
The point.
Exactly. But go in January. We just finished. Go back.
That's the point. But so now that can't be Mourinho's fault.
Wow, Cyrus, you've just dissected Spurs in its entirety. We all were saying it. It's just obviously you had the numbers to back it up, and you've seen it twice. So yeah, AB.
I love the guy. I know what he does.
Look, quite frankly, if he didn't have the fight with Arsene Wenger, I would have gladly taken him the moment we dropped Unai Emery. But I know Arsenal fans, and I know how bad they can be. But yeah, I'm with you there. I don't care if it's pretty. I'm tired of pretty football. I just want to win trophies.
Win.
AB,
win.
AB, you've also gone through the Mourinho cycle. What do you make of this situation? Do you think? Let me ask. Do you think he'll be fired at the end of the season?
So I think if they were to fire him at the end of the season, it would be completely unfair to Jose, in my opinion. Jose again has gone and cried for a centre back, and after a fairly successful season, the previous season before, all things considered, so kind of reminds me of the season where he finished second to City at United. He was backed in his first season. United won trophies. He was backed in his second season in the market. United did extremely well to finish second to City, and then lost to that football heritage bastards Sevilla. But they beat Liverpool, which was a big deal for United fans like the weekend before. And then wanted a centre-back, wanted Harry Maguire. And we signed Lee Grant, Diogo Dalot, and Fred. And that was it. And United needed centre-backs because, that's why they lost to City. They weren't as tough. And then things implode around him. I think now if Jose were to stay and does get the next window, so the next summer window, he has to ask himself which centre backs are going to improve Spurs, and that's the hardest question for me. At least we knew Harry Maguire at Leicester was available because it's Leicester versus a United. But now, who wants to jump ship to play for Spurs if Spurs aren't going to make it in the Champions League? So first things first is he needs to qualify for Champions League to attract that centre back. If he is out of contention for the Champions League, it wouldn't surprise me to see him get fired. But when you're ninth, you're not attracting good centre backs.
Let me ask you this: Cyrus mentioned Yannick Vestergaard. I'll also put in a Soyuncu in there as a big.
Why would Soyuncu leave Leicester though?
Money, bruh, money.
But Spurs don't like spending money. This is the thing.
Well, we do now.
I think both of them will go for like 70 million, but there's the prospect of you're the piece that Mourinho needs to win trophies.
But Levy's never spent more than what, 35 million euros on a player or £1 million on a player.
What's Ndombele's?
No, for Mourinho.
Oh yes, but if he spent that amount for Ndombele, surely he'll do that for us for either Vestergaard or even a Soyuncu.
Ndombele was signed after the Champions League final, right?
Yes.
Yep.
I mean, so Poch earned that. What's Mourinho going to do to earn
when the
70 million?
When the Carabao and Son didn't need.
Here's the thing. Who's the Real Madrid centre back who wants to leave?
Ramos.
Yes.
Ramos.
Could a Sergio Ramos work in this team? He in the Spurs defense?
We have been linked with Ramos. I mean, that's the problem. We've been linked with bloody every single central defender in the whole world.
But he'd be cheap, but he'd probably leave on a free because he'd be leaving on
I also read that they want Di Maria because he's also available on a free at the end of the season from PSG.
Or Angel.
Yeah.
The snake. Not at centre back though. Not at centre back.
No.
Oh, okay. I was like, wait, which Di Maria
as a Bale sort of replacement. Because
we're just going to give Bale back. We're going to give Bale back and give Di Maria.
Okay, let's let Sai with his point.
Yeah. Hopefully my internet will hold up. But I think that AB made the point about Champions League football being a draw card. Right now, you don't have the privilege of saying we're in the Champions League, let's get the best in the world. However, it is a planet full of football players. So there's bound to be players who will say, look, I'm willing to come on to this particular project and let's move forward. I mean, you look at Chelsea, there's a whole bunch of guys who might not necessarily stay at that team. Tomori, for instance, who's gone to AC Milan, might be available for transfer. Potentially Rudiger or Zuma. So that's a few of them there. Right? Then you look at world football generally, and there's Koundé at Sevilla. Isn't there another? I'm trying to think of the other centre back at Leipzig that isn't Upamecano.
Oh, yeah, not Upamecano. Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
But yeah. So, but you get what I'm saying. Yeah, him.
I'm actually googling centre back, not
Koundé as well.
Isn't Koundé Malone quite short for a centre back? He's quick. He's the guy you'd partner next to a Vestergaard.
Willie Orban.
But my point is, even at Atletico, there's still rumors of like a Jimenez might be available. So you don't have to go for the absolute best in the world, but what you have to do is do far better than what you have right now. I think, in fact, the injury-prone, names are escaping me, but at Barcelona, they've got a few centre backs who might also be on the market in the next couple of months. So it's not as if they don't have the potential to bring in some quality. The thing is, it has to be what Jose is happy to work with. And that's what Levy has to make the most of. Because Joe Rodon, look, I'm going to say a lot more hurtful stuff about Spurs, but they've generally had some pretty average guys in that team for years. Davies is standard. Right? You look at Rodon, and I don't see enough for me to get excited about him. To tell the truth, right? If we're being totally honest, I think Spurs should even look at like a Lewis Dunk or Ben White. Those guys actually look like solid players. Maybe even what's his name at Villa?
Tyrone Mings.
Tyrone Mings. Yeah.
Esri Konsa, not Mings. Esri Konsa. Stop going with British.
Yeah.
He's a British player, but Esri Konsa is the guy you
Konsa's
want.
great.
Konsa can go to Arsenal. We'll take
Konsa
Mings.
for me. Yeah. Konsa is a good centre back when he's next to an organizer. Tyrone Mings is the organizer, and that's who you need. You need the organizer.
Okay. Last words on the Spurs thing. Next week we'll talk about Jurgen Klopp wanting a break, but we need them to lose a little bit more. Dean, final words. How long do you think you're going to give him? Are you going to still stomach this disgusting football that you're watching right now?
Yeah, so I think, taking everything that I said as well, I think my final point to be made is we're not getting rid of Jose anytime soon. Levy hired him to be a winner. He's going to wait it out because, again, Levy's not going to go and pay his release clause or whatever it might be. Be stuck with Jose for the meantime. And I want to believe what everyone else is saying. If you give Jose time, if you just back the guy, he'll come good. I'm just hoping that time comes because at the moment it doesn't feel worth it. But in December, I was wearing my Spurs shirt to bed. That's how much I wanted to bloody wear the shirt.
Take my drip.
Hang on.
Take my drip.
So,
drip.
There we
That's
go.
Dream night drip.
We can only hope. That's the point. Let's hope.
I want to ask you this question though. Do you think Harry Kane is playing better under Mourinho than he did under Pochettino?
Yes, and this is the thing that I wanted to say as well. You can't doubt the good Jose's done. Jose's brought out the good of Ndombele. He's brought out a better Kane. Son's playing some of the best football we've ever seen. So you look at what he has done with the players that have bought into the system, and you can't fault it because we are seeing the best of those players. And now this is the question is, are the other players just not buying into the system? Are they not good enough?
The word is prep. You're looking for the word.
So that's the point. You look at that Spurs side, you're only going to, the only guys that can walk into any other team from that Spurs side are Kane, Son, and Ndombele. Those are the only guys that you'll take.
And Laurie. And Hugo Laurie, yeah. But I mean,
even Lloris, I wouldn't.
Lloris is going to PSG next season. Lloris is going to PSG next season. Him and Poch are going to have their little man-child, whatever they're going to do.
Because Keylor Navas is horrible.
Yeah, that's literally the rumors. It's going to happen. So then you start looking at where else. I mean, Lucas Moura, average. Gareth Bale, absolutely not going to go anywhere. Lamela is good on the day, but you never know if Lamela's going to slide tackle someone 7 times and get 3 red cards.
Is a watered-down Willian. And when I say watered down, as in he is 3 parts water and 1 part Lamela.
Let's calm down. Lamela scored a Rabona. Wait, and where's Willian's Rabona goal?
Have you not seen his?
When it comes to contracts, Willian will score all the Rabona goals.
As a Spurs fan, you should know about Willian. I would be very, very careful.
I know a lot about Willian.
Okay,
that's why I hate the guy.
Okay. Let's hold up. So this weekend, your mighty Spurs. I don't want to call it. I wouldn't call them mighty.
West Ham.
Yes, you got a London derby at the Olympic Stadium. Arsenal's got Manchester City. Aston Villa have Leicester in a very intriguing game. United have Newcastle, which is probably going to be another win for Newcastle there because it's at Old Trafford. And Chelsea plays Southampton. So there's a lot of games to look out for. But I want your prediction. I don't want any answers. I don't want any lines. Arsenal, Manchester City, game of the weekend. What's the scoreline?
City 3-0. City 3-0.
I would probably say 3-0. Yeah.
Is Gundogan scoring?
Gundogan's not playing.
Yeah.
He's got a hamstring injury.
And KDB's back.
Yeah, Kevin's back.
Is Kevin back?
Oh.
Yeah,
Kevin's back.
Came back. Yeah.
Came off the bench.
I don't know why I'm laughing.
He's not going to be Gundogan. Gundogan finally looked like a player, but that guy is more broken than Chris Waddle.
He scored like 10 goals in like 10 games or something.
Yeah.
So if I come out with a draw, then Arteta is probably. I think this is Arteta's statement game. If he wants another contract from the Kroenkes, he needs to at least not lose in this game, and somehow he might find a way not to. But
guess the
know
man's
if
not
that-
getting a contract.
Arsenal just don't have enough options. That's the problem
there's
here.
nothing.
Because
It's the same.
if it's not going well, who do you call on?
Willian. That's what we were trying to run away from. That's what we're trying to run away from.
Exactly.
Now, because he started Odegaard over the weekend, and I'm sitting there going, oh my lord, the first substitute was Willian, and it was. So, yeah. But look, I'm
you
excited.
chose him. You chose him. That's the
I
thing.
know.
Willian didn't come through the youth academy or anything like that. He basically said, Willian, we'll give you 1 year. And Arsenal were like, we'll give you 3 years on your contract.
It still
You
hurts
literally
me, but
looked at your left or right foot and you decided which one to shoot. That's what Arsenal did.
it still hurts me.
So
But,
they got both.
So, guys, let's close out the show. It still hurts me, but you know what? It's fine. I'm praying and hoping for an Arsenal draw this weekend. And I hope everyone else somehow finds a way to drop points. I need to catch Spurs. We're 2 points behind. Or was it 4? We need to get close. Yes, we need to get close to you and bring you down to the bottom half like the rest of us. But anyway, thank you very much, guys, for joining. Thank you, everyone, for listening and watching. We'll be back in a couple of seconds with the FPL edition. We've got some really interesting picks now that KDB's back. But from myself, Cyrus, Dean, and AB, from the cheap seats, Les Sale, Kakachis.